Hello and welcome to Grumpy Old Crone with me, Annie, where I will be whinging about things that don't matter very much in the witchcraft and pagan communities for about half an hour, maybe a little bit over. So if that sounds like your kind of thing, stick around and let's be grumpy together. Yay! So the good news is, it's good news for me, not necessarily for you, is that I have this week managed to completely avoid either accidentally dressing as a horror movie character or setting fire to my head, unlike last week. So, that's positive, I feel. However, it does mean that I have to resort to other things in order to bring you today's witchy aesthetic. So, I find that obviously the way various algorithms work, it scrapes your social media input and delivers adverts that it thinks are most likely to work to get you to buy stuff. And obviously the various algorithms have figured out that I really love witchy shit. So that's what I get a lot of in my day-to-day Facebook, Instagram, what have you, Google interactions, is a lot of that stuff advertised to me. And during the course of any one day online, I see an immoderate amount of knockoff Temu tarot cards, Nemesis Now figurines, and weirdly thinly made besom broom decorated things, and I have opinions about all of this kind of stuff. To be super quick, first of all, Temu tarot cards just don't. They are printed on pathetically flimsy cardstock. They're useless. They have bad energy. They rip off artists. And why would you use something that has been stolen in order to try and do something that has a magically energetic activity to it? I just don't know why you do that. And for the people who are going to come at me now saying, well, that's all I could afford, yeah, you know what, just save up a little bit longer, or maybe buy a second-hand set. There's nothing wrong in a set of second-hand cards. Don't believe this bollocks about you should only be gifted your first magical set. Oh no, don't. Just buy what you want, cleanse them with a bit of sandalwood and a lump of selenite. Job's a good one. Okay, right, that's all you need to do. Just don't buy Temu ones. You can buy second-hand ones that are nice, that are on proper cardstock, that aren't flimsier than reading, like the Daily Mirror. Just don't do it. Okay, there we go. That's that. Nemesis Now. If you don't know Nemesis Now, I'll try and put up some pictures. You've seen it, I guarantee. Whimsical little black cat images in witchy hats and various... It's just a lot of resin. There's a lot of resin involved in Nemesis Now. And every witchcraft market that you ever go to will have stalls stacked high with this stuff. If you like it, buy it. If you don't. It's just... I just see so much of it. A bit tired of it. I will be honest, I've bought some in the past because I used to do quite a nice Star Wars range, and my brother-in-law is quite into Star Wars, so I have bought some of those for him. So, whatever. And weirdly understuffed besoms. Why is that a thing? I don't know. I see people selling them, I think primarily for people who are getting hand fasted and they want to jump over a broom, so they want to buy a nice broom, which I totally get. But the ones that seem to be sold, they never have enough twigs. I don't know why, they're always weirdly thin. Why would you buy something that cannot act as the tool that it's meant to look? It's like buying a blunt kitchen knife. Why would you do that? I don't know. So, and they look cheap. And it's odd because twigs are, well, I won't even say they're cheap, they're free. Twigs are free. You just go to a woodland, pick up twigs. They're free. So I don't understand that at all, particularly when they've gone to all the effort of decorating them nicely, hot gluing nice dried flowers and things on. They look lovely. Who wouldn't want to jump over one of those at hand fasting? But just put more twigs in, dudes. There we go. Those are my opinions. Sorry, over and done with. Right, but anyway, it brings me onto the subject. Sorry, I went on far too long about that. I do apologise. But it brings me on to the subject that I did want to address today, which is things that are aimed at witches but are sold with a rather tone-deaf lack of knowledge. So if you're wondering what I'm talking about, historically, witches were the bad guys, right? We were the things that we used to scare children in the night. You know, go to bed, or Black Annie will get you. I love the idea of Black Annie. I need a bigger hat, but still, or whoever, you know, they're the bad guys. They're going to come along and curse your cows and steal your milk and turn your butter and they were the bad guys. Okay, a witch's anger brought about death and bad weather and disease and failure of crops, and it was, not to put too fine a point on it, a really bad thing. You know, witches, a bad thing, TM. Okay, so people took steps to make sure that they stayed away. They would hang bells. Bells historically have always been something that repels bad stuff. I think it's a hangover from the church, maybe. It's certainly in the Scandi countries. Trolls were meant to be kept away by the sound of bells, and particularly church bells. They really hated it. If you haven't seen the film Troll, go and watch it. I love it. Certainly addresses that issue. So yeah, bells were something that kept away witches, that kind of tinkling sound. And so you hung witch bells on your door to stop witches coming through your door. And then you hung witch balls, which kind of entranced them by all the stuff that was in them. You hung those in the window to stop the witches coming in the window. And perhaps you carved special symbols and signs, like they're called apotropaic, I think. I'm going to put the spelling up. I can never say this word. I think it's apotropaic. Yeah. So I'm going to, yeah, symbols and signs above their fireplaces so the witches couldn't come down the fireplace. So you've sealed your house from the witches, because witches, bad. Ooh. Right. Okay. So cut forwards to modern day, and I guarantee you won't have to go far to find somebody selling witch bells to hang on the door to witches. They're always aimed at witches. And witch balls, which, you know, I joke about it at Christmas, you're balls, but they're being sold to witches. And they're being sold to repel negativity. Historically, we were the negativity that they were meant to repel. What's going on with that? I think it boils down to the society that we find ourselves living in now. We self-identify as witches, and increasingly the traditions that we follow don't require initiation, and that can be either really powerful and really good, or can be quite bad. It can be really good because I really love the idea that we are all in control of our own spiritual path and what we choose to do with our inner emotional spiritual lives. I think that's an incredibly powerful thing. I don't want anybody standing over me telling me that, you know, you can't do X, you can't do Y, you can't do Z. I don't want that. That's bollocks. I want to be in charge of what goes on in my head and in my heart, and I feel that very, very strongly, and I think there's a lot of people following a similar path to me who feel the same. However, the flip side of that is that it's really bad because it's quite difficult, because there are so many self-initiatory traditions around. It's quite difficult to find people who will teach you. Back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, early 80s, what you did was you looked around for another witchcraft group, you joined that, and then they taught you. And it's why the spread of paths was quite limited. But then you had people to teach you. Nowadays you don't. So you have people who are taking the choice to follow a path and step into their power, but without that body of education and supportive people behind them. And I understand why they feel they need to do that. And you know, I've done a certain amount of that in my time as well. I absolutely understand it, but I really missed finding an older person to lead me through those paths. And by the time I found an older person to lead me through those paths, I was pretending to be a Christian. So yeah, I kind of messed all of that up in my own life. I hope that doesn't go for everybody else. But there are so many people out there who want to learn things and are hungry for that knowledge. And I think that hunger is a really positive thing. but it can lead them to people, who are kind of like walking red flags sometimes. This is another video I need to do at another time, is people to avoid when you're starting out in witchcraft. Or there's a whole video where I won't name names there. Aesthetically, there is nothing wrong with hanging bells on your door or witch balls in your window, as long as you do it with a little bit of knowledge and understanding of the traditions behind them. You don't just blindly do it because somebody said they repel negative energy and they have the word witch in them. That's a terrible reason to do anything. Don't just do it because it has the word witch in it, because inevitably that's going to lead down a very bad path. Where does it stop? You have witch bells, you have witch balls. Do you then have witch cushions, which you're only allowed to sit on if you're a witch? Do you have witch lamps to illuminate your spell making? Do you have witch saucepans? Oh my God, are there witch saucepans? I bet if there isn't somebody out there currently manufacturing witch saucepans and being marketed at people who identify as kitchen witches, I reckon it's just a matter of time. Probably putting like a pentacle in the bottom, in the non-stick at the bottom. And then when you get that, then it's only a matter of time before somebody says you've got to have these pans in order to be an effective kitchen witch, and then everybody's going out and buying them because somebody told them to. If you are a saucepan maker, don't do this. That's a bad idea. I mean, it's probably quite a good marketing idea, but it's terrible. It takes advantage of people. Ugh, no. Ugh, don't like that. No, yuck. Okay. So I do have bells on my door. Hands up. Bells on my door. I don't have them there because they're witch bells. I have them there because I used to hang them around my daughter's waist when she was a tiny toddler at reenactment events, and I was worried about losing her because I could hear her run, because she was a great runner. She did love to run away from me. So I could hear the bells going jingle, 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 jingle as she ran away, so I could track her and find her in a crowd. Now she's grown up with a home of her own, so I no longer need to hang bells around. I just phone her now, much easier. To know where she is and what she's doing, and she doesn't try to run away from me anymore. She just comes back to visit occasionally, which is very nice. But they are on my door. Are they witch bells? I don't think they are, but they're a set of bells on my door. What differentiates a set of witch bells from just a set of bells that I have that make me feel happy when they go jingle jingle because I think of my daughter as a little toddler giggling and running away from me? You know what? I don't know. Maybe the difference is the intention. Maybe the difference is the history behind it. Mine aren't hung there in any expectation of magical results. They are hung there because they belong to my daughter and they're happy. I don't know. This requires thought. I think what it boils down to me is anger at people who are selling things to members of the pagan community with no knowledge or understanding or desire to have that knowledge or understanding of the traditions behind what they're attempting to sell. It's just a blatant cash grab. And I kind of take exception with that, really. There's a rich history behind paganism and behind witchcraft. And I think if you take that history and the tradition out of it, you end up with a very thin and unsatisfying practice. So at the end of it, I guess what I'm saying is just do a little bit of research before you buy stuff. Understand your history as a witch. Hang whatever you like on your door handles. Bells, ribbons. I don't care. It's not my business what's on your door handle. If they look nice and they make you happy, then that's great. However, don't just buy it because it has the word witch in it and somebody told you that you ought to. That's terrible. Ask yourself why. Always my magic word, why? And this kind of, in a weird way, kind of leads on to the meat and 2 potatoes. So, this is quite a grumpy and judgy one today, isn't it? I do apologise. Although I do know there's people out there who really like kind of like the ragey, grumpy ones. So, hurrah for you. So yeah, when I was planning this video, I wrote down black versus white witch. And I don't think that really covers the depth of what I wanted to talk about today. So I'm gonna hold forth on that. And I find it's one of those common questions that people ask, particularly very uninformed people ask when you first tell them that you're a witch. The first thing they will always ask is, are you a black witch or a white witch? And I think what they're asking is, are you a goodie or a baddie? I think. I mean, literally nobody wants the person they're sat next to in the pub to say, I'm a black witch and I sacrifice gerbils every 4 days and I burnt a candle on a lettuce to curse Liz Truss. That's very English, sorry. If you don't understand it, just Google Liz Truss and lettuces. Okay, we'll be fine. Of course, if a witch answers this question honestly, what they can say, all they can really say is, honestly, it doesn't really work that way. There isn't really such a thing as a black witch or a white witch, because life doesn't always happen in absolutes. While I think we can agree that there are some terrible, awful people out there, mentioning no names, Trump, even terrible, awful people often have people who love them very much. I personally can't figure out why, but it's certainly a thing. And even the nicest people in the world have like dark secrets that maybe they don't want to tell anybody. But apart from me, obviously, because I have zero boundaries, so I just tell you everything on here, I would be, quite frankly, a nightmare to blackmail, I promise you. And in exactly that way, I don't think there's any such thing as black or white magic. I think a lot of people, and particularly those who are still finding their way in the world, would say that they try to only do good things. But I actually think it's really naive and kind of individualistic. That takes some saying, does it? Very naive and individualistic view. God, that's like a warm-up for the mouth. But anyway, it's something that I touched on in my video on the threefold law, which I'll put a link to if anybody hasn't seen it. I think a lot of people have seen it, but and why I didn't think the threefold law worked. So, say for example, your sister wants a new job and they see one advertised and she says, can you do me a working to guarantee that I get this job and that I succeed at interview? You do the working, she gets the job, lovely bit of white witchery, everybody's happy, right? Okay, now look at that from the flip side. Other applicants, maybe there's a man there who has just as many qualifications and as much experience as your sister. And maybe this guy, let's call him Bill for the sake of argument. Maybe Bill has had a divorce from a really manipulative ex and she has said, unless you pay me this amount of child maintenance, I'm not going to let you see your kids. And this job was Bill's last hope to get a job, get the child maintenance, and see his kids. So because he didn't get that job, because you did the spell to ensure that your sister got the job, Bill didn't. And maybe Bill doesn't see his kids again. And maybe Bill falls into a depression. And maybe Bill hurts himself or has very unhealthy coping mechanisms. So from your point of view, and from your sister's point of view, that was a lovely bit of white witchery. From Bill's point of view, you were manipulating things so that he stood no chance. That sounds like a bit of black witchery from Bill's point of view. It was the same spell, but we look at it in different ways. So is a spell black or is it white? I honestly think the only honest answer is neither. What happens as a witch, as a magical practitioner, is that you look at the situation, you look at the people involved, and you think about the potential cost to yourself and to the people who are involved in the spell that you're doing. And then you make that judgment call about whether it's worth it or not. And then you do what you do. There is no black, there is no white. Everything in this world, honestly, everything is just varying shades of grey. So you do what you do as long as you can live with it. And at the heart of it, I think that's what's behind the phrase, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. And I honestly believe that the bit that goes before it, and thou hurt none, you can't guarantee that. There's no way of guaranteeing that you will hurt no one. You just do what you do, and then you live with it. Much like anything else in life, really. And that knowledge will both burden and free you as you walk along your path. Now, obviously, I don't know everybody, but in my limited experience, the phrases, I am a black witch and I'm a white witch, are quite useful in terms of gauging people. So if somebody, when asked, says, yes, I am a black witch, and they have a Facebook group that's full of pictures of oddly photograph-ready spell work involving skulls and wax little effigies with pins in them and what have you. And why is there always a skull? There's always a skull. It's like the necromantic version of half an onion, I find. But anyway, there's always half an onion. Terry Pratchett tells us so. Always half an onion, always a skull. But you have to ask yourself, why? Why are they so invested in being a black witch and having such very attractively arranged spells that they always take pictures of for other people to look at? I find they're often a little bit up themselves. Just a little bit. And they need to broadcast how bad and evil and nasty they are. They probably still help little old ladies over the road. But yeah. And people who say, I'm a white witch, I do nothing but good, I find are lovely, often a little bit naive, but lovely. And they're trying to do the right thing. And, you know, I don't think that's bad at all. If I was going to take one over the other, well, I wouldn't. I would always ask for a little bit of conversation about what they do. And there's a really interesting conversation, preferably over a large glass of wine, to be had there about black, white and grey in the middle. But yeah, so I will often gauge people by how they use those phrases. But I find not that many people in witchcraft who actually know what they're doing, know their asses from their elbows, will use those phrases. Because most people understand that it's all about grey. So what do I classify myself as? White hat? Black hat? Neither. Really? I've got hats of all sorts of colours. I have a particularly unflattering one that was given to me by somebody who commissions a lot of work from me. Which is, it makes me look like Dappy from N-Dubs in the noughties. I've got multicoloured hats, I don't care. I'll wear whatever hat is needed at the time. But more than anything is I understand the fact that black and white just isn't how the world works. And I don't think anybody should attempt to classify themselves in that way. There aren't black or white hats. And you shouldn't have to wear one. You should be able to wear black, white, green, grey, purple, pink, rainbow stripes. It could have a little flag out the top of it and a light that goes woo woo woo. Who cares? It's your hat. You know, wear what you need to wear, do the magic that you need to do, as long as you are comfortable sitting with that. There we go. So now we're going to go on to the positive bit. Here comes the So one of the things that I highlighted in my video about being a witch in troubling times was about making the most of what you had where you were, of growing things if you had any space at all in which to do that. And I mentioned that I had like this tiny little garden, and I thought that what would be really nice in the positive bit is to show you my garden and to show you what I'm doing with my garden. So I started on Imbolc, actually, doing some work in my garden because my garden looked awful. And and I've carried on doing a few odds and ends out there. And I thought you might like to see that, because I think I should be held accountable. I'm telling everybody out there to grow some stuff, so why don't I do that myself? I have been accused in the past on social media of telling people that it's easy to do something when actually growing stuff is really, really hard and takes loads of money. I stand by my opinion that I don't think that's the case at all. So I'm going to try and do, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. The proof of this pudding is in the tomatoes that I get from my various things. So I'm going to take you now, if that's okay with you, out into my garden. And so you can have a look around, see what I'm doing, and my garden. Welcome to my very messy 3-season tiny little backyard. Okay, I'm going to give you a quick tour. There's the chicken coop for the agoraphobic chickens, who are currently not agoraphobic. And you can see it's a very typical kind of Victorian terrace back garden. Here we've got some shelves with bits and pieces. This top bit here will eventually, this year, hopefully become a garden altar. Lots of weeds in pots. They were not planned that way. Theoretically, could become a peony. Barbecue. Never put a bay tree in the ground. It will take over and be a bastard forever after. And then that may be a bleeding heart. I don't know if it died last year or not. Buddleia. Some mugwort and an old foxglove. Tree, apple tree, that is really weird and probably never going to fruit because I can't figure out the proper pollinators for it. Lots of green men. That's our green men collection wall. Hydrangea. Mr. Grumpy Old Crone hiding. Vickers bent. No. Fatsia japonica. That's the one. They used to have geraniums in these. They've all died over the winter. This is where my tomatoes generally happen. Various other pots of stuff. I've no idea how these marigolds have survived the winter, but they have. Bless them. Now this is a tree, an apple tree, Jonah Gold, that I would ideally quite like to recite and actually put in the ground, because it's currently in a pot and I would like that to go into the ground. That's a lilac. Dead sage. So dead. So sad. When we dug up the garden, there were loads and loads of odds and sods of brick and what have you in the ground. So I had to pull all of that out and ended up, well, it just all went under there. Maybe not. This will be, I mean, it is kind of a veg patch, but at the moment it's just a disaster zone. So that needs to be sorted out. So much lavender. Lemon balm. Love it. Needs to be cut back badly. Agoraphobic chickens. That's Dion at the front and Doreen behind her, hiding under the bench because maybe they're still a bit agoraphobic. This will, in just a matter of months, be a wild mass of grapevines and raspberries. We've got some jasmine there. We've got loads of rosemary. I've got rosemary over here as well, but I'm going to take that out, I think, because I think I want to recite that somewhere else. And I think there's a dead cherry tree at the back because it didn't get enough water last year. And yeah, bits. And look, it's a disaster zone. We've had storms, things blew over, what have you. So we need to get all of this sorted out. So let's see what we get done today. So on Imbolc, I did a whole load of work out here. It's looking a bit tidier, not you can probably see it, but the big thing that I started work on was trying to lift these paving slabs all the way to here and put them on end. Mr. Grumpy Old Crone and I got as far as that one and that took a lot of effort, including a very big pickaxe and a very small crowbar and a lot of swearing. And so it's Monday today and I thought I would come out and get this job finished because I thought, oh, how hard can it be? I've got a bit more room to manoeuvre now, and it turns out it was a lot harder than I thought. So I have done what any intelligent person would do at this point and called my son.
who is hopefully going to come out and help me get a bit medieval, as Quentin Tarantino might put it, on this chunk of 3-4 paving slabs, because I want them all to be a nice raised bed, because I used to have like an old cupboard on its side there that I put there in lockdown, and that old cupboard, when I started taking the soil out of it, oh hello girls, that's the state that the cupboard ended up in. It just kind of like fell to bits. So yeah, not great. But as you can see out here, I've cleared space. So it looks much better out here. I've trimmed back a lot of my raspberries and the grapevine, and I've cleared off my chair. And Dion and Doreen are having a little bit of a dig around and some fun there. They've enjoyed finding new things to dig in. Oh, there we go, scrape, scrape, scrape. And Mr. Grumpy Old Crone, bless his cotton socks, dug all of that over at the weekend and pulled out all of the old veggies that we're going to seed. And we planted my Jonah Gold apple tree right there, which is on a very small dwarf rootstock, so it shouldn't reach my drains, which are just over here. So I have done the measurement and that should be okay. So hopefully we'll see how we go. But oh my gosh, what a job. Right, okay, onwards and upwards.
So thanks for dropping by. And if you liked being here, do please hit the subscribe and a like and maybe the notify me button. That'd be great, so that you always know when I'm here and you can come along to have a grump with me. That would be lovely. And you can get grumped at on a weekly basis. Imagine that. I'm going to go off now and pack for a weekend away without Mr. Grumpy Old Crone. He is on his own this weekend, where he will be playing computer games, eating lasagna and drinking beer, I imagine, which sounds like pretty much the perfect weekend for him. And myself and my daughter, who I should probably start referring to as Grumpy Young Maiden, will be away in a hotel, catching up with lots of found family who we haven't seen for ages, and probably drinking too much cider, the both of us. So I will see you on the flip side of that particular hangover. Bye!